Hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jim R. Today we're going to be interviewing Andrea S. And how are we doing this afternoon, Andrea?
I'm doing great.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm really glad to hear that. So let's dive in and get the party started. Tell me about your childhood.
I grew up in rural Nebraska in a very small town. Went to high school. There's only about 600 people in the town. I had a pretty good childhood. My parents were pretty strict. I was actually a pretty straight A student until about the age of 14 when I started using and drinking, and then everything kind of went downhill from there.
So when you were young, did you have both parents? Were mom and dad both in the picture?
My mom remarried when I was 6. My actual dad was never a big part. He spent most of his time in prison.
So your parents divorced when you were very young then?
Yes, very. I think I was only about 3 months old when they split.
Okay.
I'm not really sure on those details. They don't talk much about it because of the reasons that my father went to prison. It's not discussed much in our family. However, we fell in love with our stepdad, and he was who we called dad, and he treated us like his own and took care of us like his own. And I feel like the good things that have happened in my life, and he supported us through lots.
That's good.
And yes. So
what kind of stuff did your dad go to jail for, if you're allowed to talk about that?
He went for first-degree sexual assault of a minor. And so it was never really talked about when we were kids. And I really, until I was 30, which I'm 41 now, I really didn't know any details about the situation, and it's still really difficult for my mother to talk about. So it's something like that we've had to just kind of got left in the past. And I feel that's harmful in a way sometimes when children don't know both parents or don't know situations, because then you don't really know who you are, which sucks at times. And it can get super confusing to, as a human. And you always wonder, well, what's the rest of my family like? Or, who's the other family? But like I said, like my stepdad was superb. So, I don't know if I regret not being able to know some of that family, but I'm super happy because his family has accepted us in every way possible. So
what was it like when you were at school? What kind of relationships did you have or not have there?
We had pretty good. I had several friends. Well, we were a small town, so there was it was a class of like 17. So everybody pretty much knows everybody, and everybody's parents know everybody. However, I lost a lot of my friends when I met kids from bigger towns. And that's when I started my drinking and my smoking pot and not going home at night. So I lost a lot of my friends from there. However, since I've gotten super sober, and some of them have come back around and support me and Facebook me and message me all the time. So it's kind of nice having them back, and they've got to speak to me about how they felt, about things that I did. And it helped me understand a little bit more why they stopped speaking to me. So it's been kind of nice.
What kind of things did you do that you had to talk about?
Like they would make comments like, well, we didn't have the right kind of drugs at our parties for you, which was a true fact. So in my depression, I got diagnosed with really bad depression when I was 14, and it took a hold of me. Like I've struggled since I was 14 with depression. So
when did you first use drugs or alcohol? What age were you?
14.
14.
Yes. 14.
It's very young.
Yes, that was pretty much marijuana and alcohol was pretty much then. And then when I turned, it was around the age of 16, I found methamphetamine. So, and which became a problem. And I hid it quite well. I thought I was hiding it quite well. And then my high school sweetheart, him and I I ended up pregnant at 17 into 18, and I quit using and drinking for 3 years till I turned 21. And then when I turned 21, it became a problem because then I was of legal age to go to the bar, and that wrecked my relationship, obviously, because I spent a lot of time in the bar.
Was it like an every night thing?
It got to be. He would get super upset, like he would have to come pick me up, and he hated it. I regret that because he was a good a dad, and he was a good husband. We got married. He wanted to start his trucking business, and I feel like that truck put a barrier between us because he was gone a lot. And then of course when he was gone, I was drinking a lot every night, whether it was at home or going to the bar. And then of course I got my regular friends that they love to drink, so we all drank together. It became a very big problem. So my alcohol is my gateway drug. If I don't stay off alcohol, then I am back on everything. So
how did it affect your life at school?
Oh, my grades plummeted. I quit school. I did after I had my first child, who is a super great human. But after I had her, I got my GED. But it still affected. Like I tried college a couple of different times. That did not work out well for me.
Why not?
Because it would seem like I would do well for a while, and then I would not be okay. And until this past year, when I went to a dual diagnosis program, I was there for 6 months, and super grateful I was. I didn't realize how much I was self-medicating a lot. Because I have major depressive disorder and PTSD with generalized anxiety, which all three of those put together is not a good mix. And that's what I hope my message is today, that mental health is super important. And people that look at people just being addicts, like, just because they want to be, that's not always the case. Like, I feel like mental health is super important. And if you don't keep your mental health, it can lead to lots of other difficulties in life. And I've obviously been dealing with that since I was 14. My mom was a super sweetheart. Like, she put up with a lot when I was younger, and she took me to mental places, and she tried to get me help. I just refused at that time. Like, I refuse to believe I was that way. And it's super sad that it's taken me till I'm 41 to understand it and be aware of it. It super sucks, but I'm super grateful because my whole entire family now, they have had my back on everything, and they're super supportive of it. And I let people know, like, hey, if I don't keep my mental okay, then I'm not okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's the center of everything, so to speak, is your mental health. Like, it starts there, because if you're not happy, forget using drugs and alcohol. You may not eat right, gain weight, lose weight, get into fights with people because you got a short temper.
Yes, I did that. I pushed a lot of people out of my life because of it. A lot of people. I was very stubborn. But I want people to know that mental health is not something to be embarrassed about. It's something that needs to be people need to be educated on it and understand that it's very important.
Well, yeah, I think so you went to a dual diagnosis specialist. Yes. I think there need to be more of those. I actually write articles. One of the things I wrote is there are statistics that say between 40 and 50% of addicts have some type of mental health issue. So if you're telling me half of the people going to rehab need help, why not open more sober houses that are dual diagnosis based? Like somehow maybe they have a program there that they run where they can come in and talk to doctors and get diagnosed properly. You know what I mean? Like things like that. I don't know exactly how it would work, but I think we do need more resources for people with a dual diagnosis.
Yes, I agree. I have attended outpatient therapy service, outpatient rehab services before. I also went, and even when I went in for my drug and alcohol eval so that I could go to rehab, I don't feel their evaluations that they give are appropriate. That when they want to send someone to a 30-day. Because they don't in program, and God love them. They were a blessing in my life. The testing and stuff that they gave me when I got there was so, it wore me out, but it was so deep and so I don't know what the word is I'm looking for here, but it asked so many questions and it got down to it, and they didn't base it off an hour or 2 hours. It was a couple of days where you went and you sat with a mental health specialist and an alcohol specialist, and you went to this. It was 3 or 4 different people involved before they actually gave you like a diagnosis and put you in a program to work. And that's what I loved the most, because I finally came out feeling mind sober and not just physically sober. And I've seen a lot of people come out of the program that I went to and make it. And so I agree with you that dual diagnosis is super important. I don't think that 30-day programs, 30 days gives you time to sober up, but it doesn't necessarily help you with the underlying problems that lie there. And I think people need to be super aware of that. And I would wholeheartedly back you on opening way more dual diagnosis programs because they are super helpful.
I mean, like I said before, it's just simple logic. If half the people need it, why don't you make half of the organizations or things like that, the people who own the sober houses, like the Oxford houses, and
right.
Have them do something. You know, I don't know exactly. I'm not saying that I have the answer to everything. I'm just saying research it. People should just research it a little more.
Right.
There's so much. There's so much information on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And there's 3 girls that graduated with me that we stay in really close contact. And they are just like how I am, super grateful that we had that program to go to. Because of other things that we would speak out, like we would have counselors on the outside, but they never got as deep down and far down as the ones that we worked with where I went to. So, which was the Norfolk, Nebraska at the well. Super awesome place. If any female needs a super great place, like I called them and within a week they had me there. So the people there are great and they care, and you have like, it's a super extensive program. You have 42 hours of work to do a week, but it's great. And I came out mind sober and physically sober together, which is even better, I feel, anyways.
So what do you think could be done better about the programs you went through? Is there anything you think that they're lacking?
Honestly, no. The one that I went to was the only thing I feel that they're lacking is space, so that more people can be involved and more people and maybe a couple more mental health people, so that they can bring more people in. I feel like space and funding would be helpful.
Yep.
Definitely funding. Like I feel like there's funding going to places that should be going to other places to help people, because it is, I can't say it enough, mental health and addiction are so close together, and people need places like that, and they need people that care. I mean, I know my family is even super grateful to this place that I went to. So if we could find more funding to help these places to get people that care and come in and help and do all, I think that would be great. Yeah, funding definitely needs funding, and spaces, bigger spaces, affordable places for them to have. would be helpful.
Well, I think there's a lot of places that just too expensive.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of places that I think insurance companies need to relook their insurance policies on that. The reason that they have to charge so much is because of the funding that they don't get. And I think that there's too many places that don't take like Medicaid or state help. And then someone has to take it out of pocket. Well, if they don't have it out of pocket, they're not going to go, and then they don't get the help they need. So I definitely think funding and insurance companies need to work a little bit harder on how they handle situations like that.
So going back to you a little bit, how were your relationships going throughout your recovery? Did you have any ones that maybe you had good times with them, or any of your relationships that there were bad times?
Honestly, I've opened up a whole lot of new relationships that are super awesome, superhumans. Most of my relationships that I had when I was using and stuff are broken, either by me or by them. Some abusive, some not. I couldn't really I didn't have a good, I mean, like my relationship with my family is a lot better now. My two oldest children pretty much stopped speaking to me. But now they call me every day and they're here every day. So we've moved on in that situation. But
how long were you guys estranged?
Friends, wait. I went to prison in 2005.
Oh, tell us about this.
I went to prison it was on the 4th of July. I got pulled over. I had methamphetamine in my pocket. I went to jail and they charged me with intent to deliver. That had been my first, yeah.
What's intent to deliver?
Intent to deliver is saying that you had more than personal use in your pocket.
So basically, they're saying to sell.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. But they gave me an intent to deliver charge because it was like a little over an 8-ball in my pocket. I skipped out several times. I'm going to court. So obviously probation was out because I couldn't get my addiction under control. So the judge sentenced me to prison. My parents took
How long was your sentence?
It was a 1 to 3, but I had spent so much time in and out of jail, like those days count for good time. But so I ended up doing like a year flat in prison, but it was still a year that I will never forget for the rest of my life. That's not something I would ever want anybody to go through. I wouldn't suggest it.
What was the daily life like in jail?
It was difficult. It was very difficult because I went into prison with not really any family support or anything on the outside, because I pretty much alienated my whole entire family. My two oldest children, I had pretty much abandoned and left for drugs and alcohol. And to this day, I feel super horrible about it. I didn't have a whole lot of support. So going into prison, never had been in trouble before, was a new thing. I'm a smaller person, and there's people that are in there for like years, and some of them that are in there don't care how they do their time. So the environment can get super stressful and super scary at times. So, and it was difficult. It's not something I would ever want to go through again. You would think that would help your addiction, like when you come out. However, mine continued on after that.
Were you able to use in jail?
I never tried. There was people. I never tried. I never wanted to ruffle anybody's feathers in there. I saw lots of things happen, and I didn't prefer to go to lockdown. So I never tried, because you do get U8 and stuff in there, and if then you get locked down, obviously. But no, I didn't. And the sad thing is I had that whole entire year that I was there to stay sober. But again, I was physically sober, but not mind sober. So, which I feel is super important. to be mind sober. So yeah, it was a rough time, and it's been a very rough. My two oldest children have suffered the most out of all of this, because they've seen me in prison, they've seen me in active addiction, they've seen me lose my house, they've seen me through lots of things.
Were they young? How old were your children when you were going through these things?
They were 2 and 3 when I went to prison. But my mom and dad pretty much raised them, because when I got out of prison, for about 10 years, for about 10 years, I had super addiction problems, and my mom would, she wouldn't allow me to be around them, and I don't blame her, because of the condition I was in most of the time. I was always out for that next high, and I would come in and out of their lives, and I didn't realize till later in life how much that affected them. But now that they're older, they've gotten to talk to me about it, and they get to voice their opinions, which I'm super happy that they feel comfortable doing that, and that we can have that conversation together. And I feel like I don't feel that anybody's a bad parent when they have to leave their children somewhere. I don't want anybody to ever feel like that. I felt like that for a long time, but now that I look back, that was the better decision that I made by leaving them there. Better for them. You know, they both have super good lives now. One of them's graduated college. The other one has 2 children of their own. So I'm also a grandma now.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, and she's got a super wonderful family. Super proud of both of them, because, you know, they could have been super messed up individuals, but they decided to take what they saw from mom and not go down that path. So I'm super proud of them, but it put a big strain on our relationship several times.
How so?
They had a lot of anger, you know, like, why was mom here for this hour? And then, you know, and when they were little, I would lie to them a lot. I'd be like, oh, well, mom has to go do this or go do that. And it wouldn't be the truth. It was, I was going out to get high. And it put a big strain on our relationship. So very big.
Do you think, or do you know if they remember these things?
Oh, yes. They've talked about it with me. My oldest daughter, she's very vocal. And the older she gets, the more things she says, she'll say to me. But she says it out of love, out of some hard love. But I'm glad that we're able to talk about those things. So yeah, they do. They every once in a while they'll say something. My son makes the comment. Now he'll make the comment, well, now we've got our mom back, or we've got her on the right path. So if it wouldn't have been and if it wouldn't have been for their tough love, I think as I got older, and then my grandbabies, I wasn't allowed to see my grandbabies. I think if it wouldn't have been for some of them, you know, giving me that tough love, that, okay, you know what, you can't be part of our lives if you're not gonna be better. And then and I have 3 little ones, 3 little kids under the age of 10. I have a 10, an 8, and a 5-year-old, and the state took them. If it wouldn't have been for all of them, I don't think I would be sober and and gotten to the place where I was at today, which I will have 1 year sober April 30th. So
20 days.
Yeah. I know we're not supposed to count ahead, but I'm super excited because it's the first time that I've been completely sober in a very long time. A very long time.
So tell us about life now and life in recovery. How, and I missed it, I guess. How long? Oh, you're 1 year. So the 1 year, what made that incident start? Do you remember like that night or that day you said, gonna take charge here?
Okay, so in June of 2020, I lost my house. I lost my 3 little kids. I was in a relationship with, at this time, is not a relationship anymore, because I realized that was a toxic relationship. I couldn't stay sober for the very first year that the state had my kids, and I was in And my dad had passed away at the same time. So going through a lot. For until April of last year, it didn't matter what anybody said or anybody did. I couldn't get sober. I couldn't stop using. I couldn't pull myself out of the depression that I was in. My depression had gotten so badly, and I wasn't at that point in my life to where I wanted to admit to it, until they said, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to lose your kids forever. And when they said that, I immediately got on the phone pretty much and called Norfolk, and they called me back and said, yep, and had me there in a week. And I was tired. I was worn out. I had hit rock bottom. I was living in my boyfriend's car, had no money, had no real life going on. Like I was so tired and worn out. So when she called me, my shoulders felt 100 pounds less, because I knew I was going somewhere that was going to be able to help. And it's sad that I had to get down that far, but for me, that I had to literally hit rock bottom to get sober and have my kids back in my life.
Yeah, that's a story all too familiar, unfortunately.
Yes, and it's true what they say about hitting rock bottom. Like I had a very good job. I had a 4-bedroom house. I had everything that anybody, in a single life could possibly want, but yet for some reason it was never enough for me to stop doing the things that I was doing. And there were so many people that tried to step in and help and say, look, you've got, like you need to sober up. There were so many people, and I feel bad that I didn't listen to them, but I wasn't ready to. And unfortunately for some of us addicts, when you're struggling with addiction and mental, people saying things doesn't seem to matter. Like you've got your own mindset. When your addiction takes over, that's it.
Yep.
So it super sucks. But I want people to know that it's possible. And I want people to know that just because you have a mental issue with addiction doesn't mean your life is over. It can be helped, and it can be managed. Yep, that's what I'm looking for. It can be managed to where you don't have to suffer from it. You don't have to self-medicate. And there are other people out there in the world that have those issues. You just gotta reach out and find sometimes.
Well, it sounds like good advice, because that was actually, you kind of beat me to it. I was going to ask if, because we're wrapping up here, do you have any advice for people that might be listening or watching us?
The only thing that is true that I keep in mind every day is don't underestimate your mental status. If you feel like you're having a bad day, or you're super sad or super moody or something, don't overlook that and let it end up talking you into going and using other things to cover it up. Like reach out. There's always somebody out there that's willing to lend a hand to you or help you through a moment like that. Mental health is so important. I can't even say that enough. But mental health is super important. Super, super important. And surround yourself with people that understand that. And that will help you get through. And don't ever be embarrassed to talk about it, because it is very important. There's always somebody else out there in the world going through the same thing.
That's great. It's great advice. So I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah. Super liked it.
Awesome. So for anybody that might be watching or listening, please go below and subscribe so you'll know when we post new videos. Also give us a like. You can check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Reddit. We are also on Facebook. Go to the group page. There is an events tab. Once you click on that, you'll see that we do a Zoom meeting nightly at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. It'll give you the Zoom ID and password. So that's all I have for today. And until next time.